Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterlands universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Praetoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildspl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another season, another episode. Welcome back to season 4. We have taken a little bit of a hiatus the last couple of months. So here we are kicking off 2025, brand new season 4. I got two of my best buddies in the game on the call with me, joining us kind of co-host for old Happy. We got Fat Jimmy, and guest of the day, we got our good buddy Rogue. Welcome, fellas. Wonderful to see you.
I thought I was the co-host and Fat Jimmy was the guest.
I'm AI. We can establish.
The co-hosting. The co-hosting saddle is too deep today, I guess.
I'm not interesting enough to be a guest.
Well, you've got the numbers that have moved you into co-host territory, Jimmy, I think is what it is.
I'm glad I'm here. Glad to see you guys again. It's been quiet on my podcast. I just haven't had you guys in my ear for a while, and I missed you. So glad we're here. Glad we're kicking it off, getting everything back on the right path, and no more breaks.
Yeah, no more breaks too. Missing it too.
Well, unfortunately for you guys, you're gonna have to wait another week unless you really got an ego and love the sound of your own voices. It's gonna be another week before.
I know. I literally thought about that last night. I was like, man, you're gonna kick it, and I just gotta wait for more. That's the worst part about being on your show. Like, I love your show so much that being on it is a sacrifice for me.
Next week, Rogue. Next week we'll be back. All right. Well, we were kind of batting around a couple of ideas to get this thing kickstarted, and coming off the heels of the I want to say the first big massive town hall in probably the last 6-9 months. We're coming up on we're very firmly on the cusp of Conclave Arcana. We're sitting with some big marketing moves in, the upcoming next 5 weeks. We've got Conclave Arcana coming to testing within the next couple of weeks. We got SPS Validators launched a couple of days ago, some minor UI tweaks. We can talk about that a little bit later. I think there's the jury is out on how that has impacted gameplay, but a lot of the big stuff that we've been hearing pretty much ad nauseum for the last few months is starting to reach a boiling point and get pushed across the line and into production. I woke up this morning and had a flurry of messages from, good buddies throughout the game saying, "Oh, this was the biggest town hall in quite some time. Feeling bullish again, for XYZ reasons." So here we are, and we've decided to kind of kick things off looking at what is the potential shift in, kind of player distribution throughout Modern once Chaos Legion rotates, which, again, is within the next couple of months time frame. So Rogue, why don't you kick us off? Let's do a little bit of rehash on what we just talked through, but in a nutshell, Rogue, if you guys kind of want to follow along with the discussion, head over to splinterstats.net and look at the battle data for one of the last couple of complete seasons, and you can kind of get an idea of what Rogue is talking through as as we proceed through the conversation. And quick shout out to Keo Kiz. He's the mastermind behind Splinter Stats. I love this data. It's all good stuff. All right, Rogie, kick us off, brother.
Yeah, man. So this is something I brought up in the People's Guild Discord for a minute, and it's funny while I've been kind of patiently waiting. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening in the Splinterlands game and the ecosystem, and there's lots of things that I was looking forward to. The unlocking of Soulbounds, the releasing of Rebellion. Like there was a lot of things I was looking forward to, but then I would say quite a bit into Rebellion, I realized probably the most critical point in the game for Splinterlands is going to be the rotation of Chaos Legion. And Chaos Legion, I think, is unarguably the cheapest and most like overprinted card set in the history of Splinterlands, right? And I mean, comparing it to like only three other sets, but like it dwarfs everything else that they've done at this point, right? So there is a giant card pool here that is going to rotate in a couple of months, or I'm sorry, a couple of weeks at this point. And so what I wanted to do was I know that there's a huge gap because I've experienced it personally. I've talked to a lot of people and they're kind of in the same boat. The people, in my opinion, that own Rebellion cards are the ones that either stayed in their league, even when like Chaos Legion is now like super cheap, they didn't outplay the league that they're planning to, or max level players. Those are the only people that purchased Rebellion, right? So Rebellion price stayed relatively stable, but what is happening is the lower player demand doesn't exist. There is no bronze, silver demand for Rebellion. And the main reason for that is because Chaos Legion is still super cheap and max level for the most part. Like it is cheap at max level. So that's when it gets into what all the players are complaining about. They're saying, it's like, I jump into bronze and I'm playing against max level decks. It's like, and then the main argument that that Matt would always say is like, oh well, they'll play themselves out. Sure, they will eventually, right? But like you take any new player, they're just gonna go rent the max cards, and that's what they'll play through. And so what we're seeing now is there is no reason to pair your max level chaos deck with not maxed rebellions. Like they just didn't mix well. There was nothing really super in rebellion that would help you in diamond unleveled up, So there was just a lot of people that passed. And that's what the data in Splinter Stats is kind of showing us right now. So when I went and I looked at season 151, I see there's a pretty even split between modern and wild battles. So there were 786,000 battles total in that season. And so if about half of them were in modern, we're talking about 390,000 battles. Okay. When I look at the data specifically for champion, 20,000 of those 390 were in champion. So that's about 5% of the battles played in modern were played in champion. So pretty healthy spread there. And your typical summoners are up here at the top. Eternal Tofu's got 60% usage, Cryptic's got 26. Lorcus is at 9. And then you've got, Quicks, Kelly, and Lux kind of rounding that out. Then when you look at the monsters, you've got Venka at 32%, Olivia at 23, Eleanor at 21. Soothsayer is at 17%. So like these are your promos. Grim Bardoon's at 15 50, Moxie and Rebels at 13.6. So very high usage percentage for new cards, right? And that's the champion meta. But then you go down to Diamond, and Diamond had 80,000 matches. So looking at that, that's about 20% of what was totally played in Modern. So when you look at that, the summoners, your top played summoner in Diamond Modern is still Kelia. 35% of the battles played in Diamond were Kelia. 27% was Quicks. 20% Lux Vega. 11% Immortalis. 10% Thaddeus. Then you get to Tofu at 10%. But I would argue that that 10% Tofu battles, that's just all your champion players playing out of Diamond. So, but like the majority of the battles that are being played are with the cheap Chaos cards in Diamond. And it only supports that in the monsters too. Monsters, Uraeus, 31%, Supply Runner, 23, Dr. Blight, 22, Deep Lurker, 21, Pellicor Bandit, 20%, Tidebiter, 13. These are your staples. These are your Chaos staples, and they vastly populate the modern meta in Diamond. And it only does the same in Gold. In fact, it probably gets worse. Kelly at 34, Thaddeus at 21, Obsidian at 18. Like nobody's playing Rebellion
Well,
in
real
Diamond
quickly,
or
Rogue,
lower.
it's so I'm looking through the same data as you are, and you've got to scroll down to the bottom 2-3% plays on the summoner side until you see another rebellion card, which is really, really crazy. Um,
Mm.
you see Tofu at 10%, and then you've got to go a good another 5, 6 more commonly played summoners before you see another rebellion card, which is cryptic. And then
Which
it
is
came,
cryptic at
and then
3.5.
EMP. Yeah.
Helios Matriarch is played more than Cryptic in Diamond modern play. Just let that settle into everybody's head. The Soulbound 6 cost summoner is played more than Cryptic in Diamond. That's the whole story. And this is what I wanted to tell everybody is that from what I can see from the data, I can only safely say 5% of the battles played in modern are from people that have rebellion cards. And so for me, what that says is we've got at least 90% of the player base that is going to be in a real weird spot come rotation. And I don't know what they do. That's really where the question's going to be because there's going to be a moment where everybody kind of in their head is like, I've just got chaos, I'm in, whatever. I'm just gonna move to wild, and I'm just gonna let the bot farm, and I'm just gonna be real passive with Splinterlands. Sure, that's possible. Maybe all of them do that, but if they do, and Modern gets slashed by 90% of its players, what are rewards going to look like? Then, if rewards are that appealing, then maybe some of that 90% starts to come back with bronze decks. Why? Because there's nobody there. So, like, a bronze win is probably going to feel pretty good. And then some bronze players will start playing against each other, and then they'll try to one up each other. Then silver will start to come in. Because I think what's going to end up happening is when chaos rotates, we will go back to leagues, but it won't have to be forced by the team. It'll just be what happens financially. That's when we get back to where like a bronze player is somebody that is going to spend like a couple $100. Silver players are going to spend like little over $1,000. Gold players are going to spend, $3,000. Your diamond champion players are going to spend 10 grand, you know, because that's how it was. And that's how the prices are still set up for Rebellion. And the only reason that demand from Rebellion hasn't gone through the roof is because They haven't had to. Chaos Legion's still there. So I think I think rotation is going to be the craziest thing we've experienced. And that's why I've been really adamant against starter packs. It scares the crap out of me. Like this right here, everything that you're seeing right here, and the demand for rebellion while Chaos Legion's been there is what happens when you create a super cheap option. Because you don't have to, if everybody else isn't playing with tofu, if 90 plus percent of the people aren't playing with tofu, who cares if you don't have tofu?
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
but before we dive into the conversation of starter packs, and I think we should, I want to think about the other side of the experience for non-champ modern post Chaos Legion. So the vacuum is going to suck 95% or probably, a better ballpark is 90% of these numbers are going to overnight disappear
Hmm.
uh because there is just no rebellion cards decks providing match liquidity. What does that look like for the guys that do stick around? That, I'm thinking about Hep, for example. He's um I think fielded over time. He's kind of continued to play within the gold lane of rebellion and has mostly a gold deck of rebellion cards. Uh what is that going to do? Like, is he going to be starting to get matched up with low diamond guys, mid diamond guys, high diamond guys? Do we have the manpower in terms of Splinterlands bots providing the match liquidity to? It's going to be a
Mm.
rough. It's going to be a rough experience for, right now. Just looking at these numbers, you've got 90 plus percent, 95% of your battles happening sub champ. Match liquidity
Hmm.
is a non-issue. The numbers are this is a little surprising to me because it's actually indicative of a pretty healthy distribution from a league perspective, but the
Yeah.
experience doesn't necessarily reflect these numbers because of, the $700 max Chaos Legion set, and therefore you're playing, if you're buying gold rebellion cards, you're still going up against max Chaos Legion, which therefore equates to probably a shitty game experience because you're just getting housed by max cards. Uh, so yeah, I just wonder logistically, do we have the systems in place? This would have been a great town hall question, Rogue. Do we have the systems in place to support this sort of transition? Because the life is going to fall out from beneath all of these leagues sub champ, uh,
Hmm.
literally overnight. Until folks start buying into the new set. Um, yeah, I just don't know. Maybe that's just I don't know if you guys care to respond to that, but yeah, I'm kind of thinking next steps beyond. Obviously the rewards are going to be. I I don't even care to estimate, but I would guess
Yeah, right.
orders of magnitude larger than what we're seeing now. And on average, I'm getting, anywhere between 25 and 35 SPS per win. Uh,
Hmm.
if all of a sudden that goes to even 2x, 1.5x, even at current prices, that is still a pretty compelling argument to play modern.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we have to
And that's
figure
just,
into survival mode might take 1/3 of the reward pool eventually too. That's in consideration to toss into that mix. As it is now, the team's going to support it, the rewards,
mhm.
but pretty soon they're going to have to come to another vote about whether or not the DAO funds the survival mode. They,
Mhm.
well, we've got. Did Matt or anybody on the team provide clarity around the length of time that the team will be footing the bill in terms of rewards for survival mode? Do we have a number on that? Whether it's 3 months or 10
I don't
seasons
remember. I don't
or
remember a specific number. I just remembered like the first while. At first is what it was when I first heard it.
Mm.
I don't know if I
Well,
heard a specific number. Yeah.
I mean, realistically, to see things properly shake out, I would guess, maybe in the neighborhood of 10 seasons, 15 seasons, something like that, to see what kind of proper effect, that would give at this point, I think we have to give an honest try for survival mode to work. The team has divested out of the core game mode into developing survival mode. Uh, I think on paper and in theory, it feels like it could be a solid, realistic solution for the massive, massive card supply that is Chaos Legion. Maybe we see a lot of these rentals get pulled off and consolidated into, card lords accounts and survival mode gets powered up. So I would guess somewhere in the neighborhood of, that 10, 15 seasons, which
I
is
seem to
what, like
recall it
five
was
months?
implied it was way less than that.
Hmm.
Less than that, way less than that.
Way less than
Interesting.
that. I seem to recall it being implied it was a much shorter time frame that the team would be footing the bill.
Huh. Well,
But
we should
again,
we
that's
should
just
probably
yeah, that's
demand some clarity on
speculation.
that.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
I
what
just seem to recall it was going to be a few seasons was kind of suggested, but there was definitely not a concrete number.
interesting. Well,
Yeah.
let's I mean, if we don't have any concrete numbers, I don't know how much we can really talk about the impact or potential impact of survival mode. But what do you guys think about obviously the vacuum pulling 95% of these battles? I mean, I would guess that there obviously is some modern players that have rebellion decks within their lane. Guys like me, I have an alt account that I've been slowly moving rebellion cards towards silver, and just
Mhm.
botting it in wilds. I think there's a compelling argument for me to pull my bot off of that account and start playing it manually in modern again. And I
Yeah.
would guess I'm not the only one that is kind of thinking this way. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't know if we have a super realistic, super accurate picture of what is going to be the volume of play that eventually lands in, I guess, modern 3.0 here with Chaos Legion, or yeah, with Chaos Legion exiting into wild. But experience wise, we're obviously making this big push. I think back, and Rogue, you kind of kicked us off with suggesting that Rebellion can, for all intents and purposes, turn into the new Untamed. And you're absolutely right. Like, I remember paying 2,000 plus DEC a day for Biz just to,
For the staples, yeah. Just the
yeah, yeah.
staples.
I mean, are we gonna see that again? Are we gonna see, yeah, it's gonna be interesting because one thing that we did not have in Modern 1.0, which was Untamed and Chaos Legion, was conflicts. And there was always incentive to put your extra cards on the rental market. Well,
Yep.
fast forward to today, conflicts
Hmm.
gives a very, very strong argument into why you should not be putting your cards on the rental market
Yeah.
and
I mean, it's
instead staking them on wagons. Um, yeah, it's going to be an
Unless
interesting next couple of months.
unless demand is high enough for rentals that you'd actually make more money renting the cards out, buying the summoners, and
yeah.
that would still remains to be
Yeah.
seen. That's definitely possible.
And
Sure.
I imagine that's actually probably the route that it's gonna go. Just because of knowing what it was in Untamed, and really it all actually depends on I don't know. It doesn't really depend on the strength, I think, of Conclave Arcana, because at the end of the day, there's still a decision that somebody has to make. If they haven't put any money in yet and they are appealed to the modern reward pool, they got to get in somewhere. It's either going to be from the fresh packs of Carcana Clana or Arcana Conclave Arcana,
Carne
or it's going to
asada.
be You know,
Card game all
Carne
clava.
asada. Make more tongue
Lava.
twisters. Tongue twisters for
yeah,
titles. It's always good.
or it's
What
gonna
a
be the rental
mouthful
market of Rebellion.
of a
Yeah.
card set name, man.
It's not too
CA.
late to change it, is it?
Right.
CA.
Something
CA.
simpler. But
So
oh well,
yeah, and
also
we'll
soulbound cards, man. That's another thing that also throws a wrench in this whole thing is like you can this soulbound's a huge set. It's like a set in itself almost. It's ridiculous.
first round, the
I
first round or
the
the
current
second round?
round, even the current round.
But the
It's
current
huge.
round doesn't have summoners.
No, it doesn't have summoners, but you could rent summoners or buy summoners and use those soulbound cards. We were just talking about how powerful Olivia is. That's a
Oh,
soulbound
exactly.
card. There's a lot of soulbound cards that are actually meta cards. So it's
But you know what's
Well,
interesting, and this is where it's going to be fun, right? So think about this, right? You've been playing Diamond with your Chaos Legion deck forever, and yeah, you've got a maxed out Olivia now. But come Conclave Arcana and
nailed
Rebellion,
it.
what summoner are you using with it? Like you got to go out and rent a max summoner in order to play it, or or you're buying in and all of a sudden your max Olivia is just a silver Olivia because you don't have a summoner to actually play with it, you know? Like right now, all these soulbounds that they're getting at these max levels are paired with summoners that are plentiful and cheap to rent. But that's not going to be the case in a couple weeks, month, whatever.
Well, I think there's a couple of things to consider there. I was harping on the design teams. I think perceived failure in designing the Rebellion reward set in a way where it leveraged heavily on the Rebellion set. I still think that's true. I think
Yeah,
a lot of those cards they do not need to coexist with Rebellion to succeed.
that's true.
In that same, frame of mind, I think Conclave Arcana should be designed also not to coexist very, in great synchrosity with the Rebellion rewards for that exact reason.
Mm.
If you can get by with, we should be designing, and this goes back to something that I've harped on for ages and ages, and I think something I do want to talk to you guys about. Um, when we're designing the card set, kudos to the team for delivering a lot of big stuff. Kudos to the team for having a lot of stuff in the hopper, and there's multiple pans on the fire at this point. We're going to see stuff starting to pop off over the next couple of months. But in the same breath, it boggles my mind that we are sitting hypothetically 2 months from the launch of Conclave Arcana, and we are still designing the set. And I can almost guarantee you that that does not include the rewards cards. It does not include the promo cards that are going to be released with that stuff. And we need to get to a place where the entirety of the set is designed, tested, and we know what the meta is potentially going to look like well in advance, and we can make the adjustments as we go. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Conclave Arcana meshes with the rewards cards, but I think Rebellion has the unique advantage of I think obviously the calling card for Rebellion is tactics.
Mhm.
Secondary to that, I think is weapons training.
dual
There are yeah,
Interesting enough, though,
dual summoners.
there's
the
not
dual
like
summoners too.
weapons training in Rebellion is like one, two, three.
Yeah, well, the non-attackers, I guess I should say, they
Mm,
play really really nicely with the weapons trainers from
yeah.
Chaos Legion,
And that'll be
and
the interesting part about this upcoming meta, right? Like, is a lot of our weapons trainers were in the Chaos rewards. So like we're gonna be in this weird spot where there's only like four weapons trainers unless more of them show up in CA, which then does it is weird if we've got like these five like no attackers and we've only got like three options to pair them with.
mm,
It's gonna be like who we pairing with Rage today?
yeah. Well, that's assuming that Dragon gets a nice little facelift because right now it's it's outside of Quicks, it's nowhere near the top of the meta.
Lily Shieldpaw still best dragon summoner.
I think so. Yeah.
Sorry.
Kitty, kitty,
Oh, kitty. Yeah. Fair enough.
kitty,
I mean, you're right. You're right, Kitty. Sorry, I forgot.
kitty.
Forgot about Kitty.
Or unless you're talking modern, then yeah, okay. I'll give you the shield paw.
What do you guys think about? I had a little bit of a discussion, and this has kind of been ongoing. Um, I think the Nidhogger proposal uh, really kind of stirred up the conversation in my mind, for me, anyways. Um, I have long been of the mindset that because the DAO is hiring the team to design the set, because the DAO is, taking the risk of, we're the employer in this situation, and the team is delivering the product for us. Um, where do you guys sit on the idea of cards being up for adjustment post-release?
Mm.
It's a sticky situation. I know and for me, let me just clarify, and I've said this in text, but we haven't run a podcast since the Nidhogger proposal has come out, so I haven't really spoken on it too much. But I feel like for me, the Nidhogger proposal was bigger than just Nidhogger. It was setting the precedent that the DAO's expectation is a certain caliber of card and quality of meta should be expected, and the team should be held to delivering upon that standard. And the data
Especially
that we
when you pay for that,
yes,
that's another thing. You pay for that particular card to be
correct.
designed.
Yes.
As a
And Nidhogger in particular was the number one prize for Rebellion.
yeah,
Uh,
right.
yeah. Um, so, there's a lot. I understand the counter arguments of, the markets immediately. It doesn't wait to see if there's adjustments coming. Um, and, potentially people make their financial decisions, assuming that cards are final once they hit production. Uh, but the flip side of the coin is when, we were just looking at that Splinter Stats data, when you're scrolling through Champ and you're seeing Tofu dominate 60% usage rate with 60% win rate, that does not spell a good meta. And especially when the team has Tofu came out, and this isn't a knock at Tofu, or at Brave Tofu, the card designer, or the card owner creator. Um, it's a knock at the team for failing to again design the meta well in advance, because these numbers in my mind are completely unacceptable and broken. And the team, after the release of Tofu, we saw the influx of cards like Olivia, which equally broken for different reasons. Mimic, I absolutely despise that ability. We saw Rick Loneman, who is by far and away, I think, the MVP of the Hall of Legends sale. Um, we saw Fizbo, all of which play to Tofu dominating more and more the meta. So, I am firmly of the mind that meta above all of the things is and should be the priority, and the preservation of fun in the meta should be priority number one for the team and for the community. Where on that spectrum do you guys fall?
I fall in the same boat. I'm just on the front end instead of the back end. Um, I do believe it is the team's responsibility and the game's responsibility to create a balanced game, period. That's what they're here to do. But the majority of your companies, that's where they put in all their time on that front end for the testing, and the data, and they make adjustments before they release the cards to the public, because the product that you release is your tested, quality assured product. And if it's not, like, you don't, like, I don't know, taking it back and changing it because you didn't do your job at the beginning. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's really the way. And then what that also does on the what that also does is that opens up the door for just anyone to complain. You know what I mean? Because, somebody's not going to feel a certain way about their stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, stats
Um,
are different than just complaining too. I mean, we got the hard numbers that say this card is ridiculously overpowered.
yeah, but like
I-
where do you go? It's ridiculously overpowered because of what? Like because like that's what I mean. Like when Grimbardoon Smith and Mantaroth, they were the first OPs. Then your Tofu, right? And then you're in this, oh, and Venka, right? And so like they just kept breaking it, but really at what point do you just say like enough? Because what happens is if you if like what are you doing? Are you ramping up Nidhogg to match Tofu? Or are you taking Tofu down to match Nidhogg? Or are you redoing Grimbardoon Smith because of its thing, or are you taking away an ability from Venka? Like that's where it's like you just open up the thing. So then you make one move on Tofu, and then you'll have something else that's oppressive. You have, and so it all needs to just be tested in the beginning.
I think Tofu's an exception because it has an extra ability over all 7 mana summoners in the game. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but
I
it
still don't
was it
understand.
tested?
No, they threw thorns on it that like I think it was a few days, maybe a week before it was released, or a few days before it was released. They're like, hey, we're giving it thorns. I remember the announcement to give it some claws. That was what they
Yeah,
said. But
That
yeah.
is what they said.
but
Nice.
but why didn't they take off something else? Like again, all the other 7 mana summoners that people paid to design had the
Hmm.
2 abilities. Tofu
Hmm.
got 3, and it's now the most powerful card in the. That's an imbalance.
Yes.
That's an
Yes.
imbalance. Correct. An imbalance should be corrected, if anything.
But why wasn't it tested? Like that's where
I
it's like
can't answer that.
That's
I
for
that's the
me
bigger
it's
question. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
because they
just
threw it
test it.
on last minute. Yeah, it was a last minute thing.
I mean, I did anybody test the Nidhogg? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, my position on the Nidhogg when that thing was released, I was pretty excited. But until I played with it, I didn't fully understand how oppressive the force reduction was. Like that is a huge debuff, way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Like in my mind, I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I have to play with one less like thing, but like that's fine because half of my team can be like a Jotun. I also have this execute ability, and like my summoner's expensive anyway, so I probably couldn't have fielded a full 6-person team and played all the big stuff I wanted to. I thought it was going to be good. But then in application, like it didn't stick, and that's what you find out in testing. And so that's why it's for me. It ends there. If the company is not gonna test, then we just have an HR nightmare at that point. Then everybody's got a leg to stand on when it's released. It's oh, this one wins too much. Oh, this one loses too much. Oh, this one this. Do it all before you release it to the public.
Mhm. Yeah, Breaking Benjamin claims that he wins a lot with Nidhogger because of the extra slot removal, the force reduction. He said that forces him to put higher, more powerful cards in the remaining slots, unless you're in the 100 mana match.
Hmm.
Um, so that's his counter to what you just said. I haven't played it enough to be able to say either way.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's just
And he says
I'm
it was
like you,
tested.
Rogue. When Nidhogger was released, I think initially my reaction was, "Wow, 10 mana, and we lose a monster, but we get blessed, but we
And
get
execute. Yeah.
execute." I think there are some initially there were some combinations that I was really excited about that I thought would be meta, and I thought it was going to be a great counter to Tofu. You on paper theory crafting, you think that blast theoretically it is a great counter to Tofu, and it should be a great count. Well, then enter Fizbo, for example.
hmm
So just doubling down on and Olivia, who at max level also breaks out the reflection shield at max level.
Uh,
Um, but I think to the team's credit, and I'm going to shout out our buddy Royal Eagle. He pushed really hard for the team to embrace community-driven testing again in a really, really big way. Uh, Dimmer Objects, myself, and Vugtis have been asked to kind of spearhead the testing side of Conclave Arcana. I think we've got maybe 15, really, really respectable players that have already agreed and are willing to sign an NDA to make sure that this moving forward is a non-issue. But all of that said, I think we as the DAO owe a service to the game, to the community, to the meta, to ensure without a doubt that this is completely avoided in the future. So in addition to more thorough testing, and I think what is happening is that we're getting quote unquote blueprint legendary summoners, the airdrops that are going to be incorporated in the testing. So granted, it does take away a little bit of the shiny promise of a leaderboard position by way of I get to design my own summoner. But in the name of fun gameplay and protected meta, I think it's a very fair trade-off. You still have a summoner kind of designed in your likeness,
Image.
which is cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that's always been the case. I don't think the designers had ever any say in the stats, from my
I think that's
understanding.
true. I think that's true.
It's just been the visual.
Yeah, I don't think that has been advertised though. I think the idea was, I remember seeing the YGG guys, for example, saying, "Oh, actually, we didn't get much of a say at all in stats and abilities. We were just kind of handed the card. We got to name it. We got to say, what kind of artwork we wanted on it." Um, and I will credit Nidhogger is a badass name. You look at the lore of Nidhogger, it fits right with, the Brawlers community. We got Niflheim and Nidvalir and Asgard and all this Norse mythology, and Nidhogger is right there as like the ultimate badass of all the badasses in Norse mythology. The artwork is cool. It's the first dragon legendary airdrop that hasn't been super cute. He's eating another dragon and stomping on people. But the card fails. So I think it's really, really critical. Number one, that testing incorporates all of the airdrops, the entirety of the set. We're looking at the meta as a whole instead of, one card at a time. And number two, something that I would really like to see that would help the DAO avoid the sort of overwhelming pushback that the Nidhogger proposal got, because it was targeted at a specific card and we were trying to push for specific adjustments. I think something that I would like to see the DAO pass and get behind and pass would be a systematic framework where we say something like, if we see within the first 2 months of a card's introduction into the meta, especially the legendary airdrop cards, if within that predefined time frame we see 60% plus usage rate with 60% plus win rate, no questions asked, this card goes back to the drawing board. And the team is responsible for a rework of some kind. That way, we're as a DAO, we are not on the hook for defining what does that rework look like. We are not on the hook for offering suggestions in terms of what direction should the team move with this card. And everybody who is potentially making those financial decisions has that expectation that if this card is delivered incredibly overpowered within the first 2 months, for example, it could theoretically be thrown back to the drawing board. Therefore, I'm going to hold off on paying $80 a BCX. I realize that some folks aren't going to like the idea of sending cards back to the workshop, so to speak. But I feel like at the end of the day, it's a trading card game. It's a really fun trading card game. And when the meta gets stale, it loses some of that luster, for me anyways.
Yeah, I get tired of spamming tofu. That hits that point where you're just like you end up playing the same thing over and over.
Do you
feel like
guys
I haven't
think,
been
I
playing
know
Tofu
both of
as
you guys
much.
were kind of on the fence about, Rogue, you just mentioned that you're kind of at the, the front part of that sliding scale. Jimmy, I know you and I talked about it. I think you were somewhere in that range too. I might feel a little bit uh more of a polarized position myself, but do you guys feel like a more thorough and rigorous testing process in conjunction with, like a systematic framework that protects the meta after the card's release? Is that something that you guys would like to see come into the game?
Um, the original trading card player in me just has a hard time with that. I don't um it's I understand we're playing a digital game. There's things that come with a digital game that should be, explored, and we shouldn't put ourselves in a box. So like, I would say that's creative. That's a very creative way of looking at things. But you know, um I don't know. Creative people will always find a way to break something. You know what I mean? And I've played many, many games and where, tofu's good. It still only wins 60% of the time. And that's different than any other game that I've ever played. When broken is broken, it's broken. Like that's the thing that makes your kids cry at locals when you bring that and you're just like, I just wanted to play my green stompy or my red aggro deck. Why'd you bring blue white control? Stop. Like broken, it's just it's so like I don't know. It's the Splinterlands game is unique. It's very unique. And personally, I don't know, maybe I'm numb to it at this point too. I came in with Kitty. Nobody was like, yeah, we need to ban Kitty. When it was like, and you want to talk about breaking a card, like, really, Splinterlands has just proven that fundamentally over the years, no matter who's designing it, they'll break something. You know what I mean? So I don't know. At this point, I'm just used to it. But I like the idea. I like the idea of maybe setting a standard um, on the back end, and if at any point it's crossed, then yeah, then you go after it.
Yeah, I think
Jimmy?
it could be addressed in testing. All of that could be addressed with proper full set design out of the gates
Mhm.
and with testing. I mean, you could have, well, I guess you do have to kind of match the summoner to the element. I was going to say you could have a bunch of legendary summoners designed that you would eventually, designate to whoever based on what their design, the winning person who would be designing it. But it kind of makes sense to just have the entire set done. I would like to see that include reward cards too. So those would synergize with the set. That would just make sense to have everything done, and everything tested before you
Mhm.
roll it out. And that's the key. That I think it's where it's fallen short is that extensive testing, and open to input. I know there has been input and criticism that's been kind of brushed aside at certain times. So
I want to
I,
say, I don't know. I'm gonna look it up here real quick, but I'm pretty sure Magic the Gathering is at least three sets ahead of itself while it's going. I think it's
yeah.
three sets ahead of where it's at right now in terms of testing. And so like whatever's next has been on the shelf for a minute, and they're already, you know, um, pretty far ahead of that.
Well, I mean, taking a page out of the books of Wizard of the Coast is not a bad way to spearhead a trading card game. I will say, Rogue, I recognize and I respect the comment that you made around, the trading card game head in you says no. Like I want
Hmm.
this stuff delivered, but you all in the same breath you also mentioned that Splinterlands is fundamentally different. And I think when you're I think it was Tails, our buddy Tails did a video kind of comparing parallel decks, Magic the Gathering decks, Splinterlands decks. Splinterlands max decks by far and away are the most expensive of the bunch. And when you're looking at, for all intents and purposes, when Conclave Arcana comes out, you're gonna need a $20,000 playing deck to be leaderboard player. Um,
Hmm.
with that sort of investment involved, I think we have to be different. I think that price point dictates a a different level of, white glove scrutiny on the protection and preservation of a fun and engaging meta and a multifaceted meta. If you can just spam to and that's what we saw in silver, gold, diamond. Tofu was the only rebellion summoner there, and for good reason. He's by far and away the best of the bunch. Um, so you know, I the Nidhogger proposal represented a couple of things to me. One was if it had passed, I felt like it would have reintroduced Nidhogger as a viable counter to Tofu, making him 7 mana along with all the other legendary summoners. With or without the force reduction, I think 7 mana is a great, kind of first step to leveling the playing field. Uh, and all of a sudden, having a viable counter opens up the meta for more than just a viable counter, right? So, if you're just spamming Tofu and then all of a sudden a viable counter is introduced by way of something like Nidhogger, then the tofu spammer has to think, "Oh, is this guy going Nidhogger? If he's going Nidhogger, maybe I want to play Squirrel." You know what I mean? So it introduces it's a ripple effect well beyond just it's not rock versus paper. It's rock paper scissors all of a sudden again, which I think we desperately need to ensure that we protect. Yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. I was disappointed that Nidhogger the proposal failed. I still wish that the team would just, own up to a failed service to the my boys on the YGG for delivering a dog shit summoner. And all respect to Joey, Breaking Benjamin, and the guys who have defended Nidhogger. I will die on the fact that I think it's a dog shit card. Unless Conclave Arcana introduces some really powerful dragon cards that all of a sudden shift the meta for Nidhogger. Um, he's going to continue to kind of gather dust for the most part for my playing
All right.
deck.
So with that, okay, you want some facts?
Bits and facts, bro.
In Champion, the worst win rate summoner is General Sloan at 27% win rate. Possibilis is number two worst at 31% win rate. And then your boy Nidhogger's right there at number three with a 35% win rate.
Hmm. Yeah, not
Go,
surprising.
go Nidhogg in Champion. Let's see if Nidhogg's
And
good
and
in
the usage
Bronze.
rate is way down too. To
Oh,
to
yeah.
be fair, yeah.
And I think Possibilis is down because of Tofu. Honestly, that whole trample thing kind of gets negated with Tofu, unless everyone
Mm.
has the reflection shield rule set.
Hey, guess what? Nidhogg's got a 65% win rate in Bronze.
It's a different story at Bronzo, right? Like Lorcas
Amen.
is also probably the best of. I would say, just like we saw Obsidian kind of dominate the lower league meta because it was such a great counter to Kelia, just heavy magic spam. Lorcas offers something very similar, but amplified by way of
Yeah.
buffing magic plus life leech plus the affliction. Uh, yeah, Lorcas is filthy in the lower leagues.
I mean, yeah, just playing them. But yeah, Nidhogg right here is 58% in silver. That's not bad. It's not
But
bad.
look, you have to take into account the usage rate also. It's like sub 2%, I think.
Yeah, it's because nobody's got it. That's back to my original point that we opened the podcast with. Like, there's only 5% of players playing with rebellion cards.
Well,
So that's
okay,
the
so
other
so well
part.
look
You,
look at Champ though, Rogue. I mean, I would argue that of that 5%, 99.9% of those players have a max Nidhogger. They just do not play it.
oh yeah, no, 100% champion.
Yeah,
I'm not arguing there. But
yeah.
what I'm painting the picture here for you though is remember, champion's only 5% of the people playing in modern right now. So yes, your argument, 5% of the people got dealt a shit card. But those poor guys down in bronze, they got a winner in Nidhogg. You guys did a service for all the bronze and silver guys. Hang yourself. That's 50% of the player base. You guys designed a summoner for the majority of the people. Like, let's be real. Let's look at it from that perspective. Go YGG. You nailed it.
All right.
A
Well,
summoner
when
for
you
the
put it in that
people.
perspective, I find that a little bit more acceptable.
Look at
But
this. Gold League. Yeah, win rate right there. 61% in gold. Still a solid 10% behind Eternal Tofu, but the second best winning summoner in Gold League. Nidhogg. Boom. Killed it. Just not gonna bring home leaderboard with it. But yeah, everybody else is gonna be happy with the card. That's probably why it lost. It's because the majority of the people love the card.
yeah, I don't know. And also, I mean, the fact that it's a dragon summoner, I think, also doesn't sit well with a lot of folks. I think dragon, for the most part, got outside of rage. Rage is absolutely awesome. It's such a fun
hmm
card. But
hmm
outside of rage, what other dragon cards do you ever see in the meta
Yeah, you're
from
really not
Rebellion?
playing Dragon too much anymore. That's for sure. I mean, yeah, sadly, Lily's the top of the playing there.
I will say I
Freaking
love the 4 mana um legendary reflection shields, like low damage output, high health. What's his face? Solace, Ashinak, Return Fire, Magic Reflect, Reflection Shield, Redemption. I
Oh
do
yeah.
love that card.
So I have a
Mm.
Uh
feeling the dual element summoners have reduced the need for dragon as well, because there's some
Mm.
insanely again, like I almost want to say, I don't want to overuse the word, but overpowered combinations. Before dual element, dragon was the only way to expand an element, and it
hmm
enhanced it. There were some killer dragon cards in Untamed and in the beta, and now with dual summoners, it's really kind of pushed life and earth up to the forefront because there's just though, especially pairing them together. The life
hmm
and earth are the ones that have all the healers. Fire and death. Fire had one healer, the Beetle
hmm
Queen, and that's it. And death had Pegasus. I think that was the only tank healer. I'm not sure if there were any more. But so then you combine the two, life and earth that just have tons of healers and triage and stuff, and you put them together, and it becomes like a
And they have the
Super team
immunity.
situation.
and the
Immunity,
immunity.
Yeah, it
like
becomes
real big.
ridiculous when you put them together.
Yeah,
What do you
immunity is
guys
huge in the meta right now.
what do you guys think about I've heard so initially I was really looking forward to what Conclave Arcana brought from a summoner perspective, under the assumption that we would see the non currently available dual
Pairs.
summoners introduced in
hmm
Conclave Arcana. And then I've heard the counter argument, exactly what Jimmy is saying, and also, from a min max perspective, I can buy 3 summoners and field any element.
hmm
Uh, so the I think the counter idea is, and one that I've kind of gradually turned the corner on, and then all of a sudden fully embraced, is maybe we don't have dual element summoners at all in Conclave Arcana, and instead postpone that to the next. I mean, me, man. I want a life death summoner as much as
Right?
anybody. Like
That's like,
that was what I was most
That should
excited
be a
about Zero.
promo.
I'm
That
gonna
should
be
be a
honest.
That should be a
promo. I,
promo.
I
Ooh.
want to see dual elements go away except for like super rare special cards. I honestly think
Mm,
that has no place in the meta, and the game was a much more. I felt more strategic when you had to choose an element. You had to choose one element, and that was your only thing. And then if you wanted to do dragon, that would enhance it. And dragon was always a little more expensive as a result.
I'm not
Maybe.
gonna lie.
Mana wise.
I have
Mana wise.
literally never considered dual elements in that, but like Fat Jimmy, you have 100% sold me. You have 100% sold me that dual elements did take away Dragon. Like yeah, I'm with you. Dragon was, that's what made it special. That's what made it special. And now, when everything's special, as Syndrome says in The Incredibles, no one is special.
Shout
Yeah.
out to one of the great Pixar movies of all time, right there. Nice.
You caught
Okay,
me
so
monologuing.
how do we bring back Dragon? Uh,
Get rid of
is
dual
it
element
Yeah, get
armor,
rid of
dual
dual
elements.
elements. I'm with you. I'm
is
I
that
with
don't
you. I'm
like
enough?
sold. Let's
I don't
do
like
it.
that, and I don't like gladiators and ranked. Get rid of all that.
Oh,
Get
that's
rid
going
of
Well,
away.
that's gonna be solved. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
with the
that.
exception of
Is
the
it?
rule set, which is okay.
The rule set's cool if it's a nice rare rule set because I could show people, hey, check out these amazing cards.
Mm-hmm.
I really
Yeah.
like the idea of only encourage them to join a guild. If you want to play with these, you have to be in a guild and you have to use them in brawls, and that's it.
Do you guys
Well,
think
that
they'll ever unlock the gladiator cards? Make them on Soulbound and release a new gladiator set?
I think a new gladiator set would be a hard reset on that conversation because it's the same argument for me with respect to the reward cards. I hate that the reward card sets are running indefinitely because as a new player, how do you ever catch up?
You can't.
Well,
That
you can't.
especially when they're soulbound, you literally can't. It's such an insurmountable barrier, and I think it's so understated how that looks coming in. If you actually want to be a competitive player, it's a
Yeah,
permanent barrier, and the insane unlock cost it just makes that even worse. It just it's a big face palm for people coming in,
I
and
agree. I mean, I would love to see, and I know the idea got snubbed on when we were on the cusp of kind of making the decision what does Chaos Legion unlocks look like and what does the next rebellion set look like in terms of duration and size of set and that sort of stuff. I feel like we need to go back to a place where new reward cards are introduced maybe quarterly.
Mm.
Uh
yeah,
and that
we used
way
to be on
you're
a timer. It used to be like there was a set, I think a set number, or there was a parameter, and it was like when it hit this number, it went out of print, and
Hmm.
you rotated the next one in, and you didn't really know exactly when it was going to happen. You didn't know what the next one was going to do, and it wasn't a full set. It was just a handful of cards.
that's what it
Hmm.
should be.
Even
It should be a
even
supplement.
yeah,
I
and
agree.
even Chaos Legion had a lot more reward cards than normal, if I'm thinking about it
Hmm.
correctly.
Well,
You know,
Chaos
and
Legion was bloody
They printed
ridiculous, man.
three
Yes.
sets of reward cards
The
in,
third of which ran for 18 months
yeah,
and just got printed to oblivion.
was that the
and included
Jin
summoners.
O'Shanis Jin O'Shanis wave? Was that? That
That's
was
when it started.
That was
Yeah,
number one. And then number
that was,
two was like Tidebiter batch.
yeah,
Oh, that's the one they cut short though, Tidebiter,
That's the
right?
one
yep.
that got cut short. And
Yeah.
then the Soulbound batch ran for
That
18
was
months.
insane. Yeah. I
Hmm.
still have a
Yeah.
million extra soul bounds sitting there.
Yeah, I
And
burned
that's a
all of
whole
them.
nother story. Don't get me started on that.
Well, I think I mean rewards cards moving forward. I think we have to get to a place where it's not a massive bottleneck for new players. They can come in and catch up to the fresh meta quickly. Um,
Soul
so
bound
whether that's
eliminates
like
them.
new cards being introduced every 3 months, every 4 months, or if it's on a timer like Jimmy's suggesting, something along those lines, I think has to happen. Maybe you continue to leave the previous iteration of reward cards available for maybe a glint purchase
That's a good idea, actually.
ongoing.
Ooh,
In the
what
So
if
then
you
shop,
you can
could?
kind of pick and
costs a little
choose where
more
your
glints,
cards
but you
are.
can buy the last set.
Yeah, something
Hmm,
like
Still.
that. But
like that?
in the name of like keeping the meta fresh, keeping new players with the ability, having these cards accessible at a reasonable level quickly for new players. And then I think we also need to see the return of some sort of financial incentive on rewards.
What if
If
we made it so that you can't sell your soul bounds, but you could rent your soul bounds?
you can't sell, but you can what?
Rent.
Rent. That's interesting.
Oh,
Be a step in the right direction, I would think.
It
But we
would
still
be
no go.
it would kind of introduce almost it would be farming, right? It would be farming, but it would have kind of a lower permanent effect, maybe.
what if you could rent for glint?
Ooh, that would be interesting.
And then, if you're renting from me a Max Gallicus, for example, you just allocate, or the game on the back end allocates, I don't know, 2% of your glint
Hmm.
earnings in matches that he's played to me, or something like that. That would incentivize, I mean, that would solve a whole lot of stuff, right? Like that would incentivize somebody like Vugtis, who's got max regular foil, max gold foil, to continue unlocking chests, because then he could turn around and create residual glint income
Hmm.
even more, renting out his max third and fourth sets.
Yeah, I mean, it would keep a pretty saturated pool out there, or at least for like the newer players, right? Because yeah, as long as we don't have summoners there, I don't see it being super ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the biggest piece for me is accessibility for the new guys.
Hmm.
That's vital. It's
Yeah.
absolutely vital. Yeah. And that's been pulled right now, unfortunately. And again, I would love to see just we had a, going back when we change things and they don't work, it's nice to go back to how they, when they
Hmm.
were working, or to at least come up with some type of,
Jimmy, we
make,
don't do that. Come
yeah,
on, man.
if it
What are you
works.
talking
If it
about?
ain't broke, don't fix it. Isn't that the old
But that's the
And
thing,
if
though,
it is
is like
broke,
slogan? Well,
I
well, the distribution I don't think was ever broke, the reward cards, until it became a set that was soulbound, and now people could literally bot with just soulbound set and rent summoners.
mm,
That's kind of an exploit. It became an exploit where
yeah,
before they would just sell the cards on the market. The bot farms would sell them on the market for a few cents. People would scoop them up. Before the huge
well,
overprinting of Chaos Legion, of course. But
yeah. I think the
and then
huge Chaos Legion set kind of did something interesting. It was like because without the cards being soulbound, each of the cards was essentially DEC inflation, just at like in unknown time. You know what I mean? If worst like best case scenario, they're never DEC inflation because they're always worth more than their DEC burn value. But then you get into the situation we're in now where they don't. They've been printed so much, demand isn't there, and they're literally worth just the DEC they were printed on. So now you are back to then that whole flywheel thing that they're trying to do, you've got another thing on the DEC inflation. So yeah, I don't know.
well,
It's
what
like,
solves all of that? What's the one thing that solves all of those problems?
new
are you gonna say
players.
land?
New players, Jangles,
Dang it.
bam, new
Dang
players,
it.
lots of them.
I tell you what, it doesn't. It just because then what are we gonna do during the next turn down? You know what I mean? Like if we constantly need new players
Well,
and
if
we
it's a
can't.
game, it won't follow crypto cycle. That's the whole point, is to make it not follow crypto cycles like it did with the last explosion. And
Games
that's
should
one
be
of the things.
recession proof. I agree.
Right. That's the one of the things that Matt has said that I agree with 1,000%, is he wants to make this thing that if Bitcoin goes to zero, it's still a functioning game with a lot of players,
Hmm.
because it's the
Hmm.
game that drives it, not the crypto. I think they could work in an incredible symbiotic relationship,
Mm,
but I like the fact, I think the game has to be strong enough, and kind of is, might need a little
yeah.
tweaking, but is strong enough that it could survive. If there's a downturn, doesn't matter. People still play games, and people still like to play games.
Hmm.
Well, I think, to answer your question a little bit more long-winded, Jimmy, I think answer number one has to be new players. We have to see new players, especially if
100%.
we see the kind of fallout that, Rogue was calling out with the data on Splinter stats from Modern. But I think on the heels of new players being answer numero uno is land, is potentially survival mode. I really hope survival mode turns out to be the kind of remedy that Matt hails it to be. I remain unconvinced, uh, but I'm open-minded at this point. I think I'm hopeful that it is the remedy. If we see Chaos Legion jump to $1,500 a set, just that's a tremendous win, and it's a 2x. I think it's completely viable. We saw packs jump from I think I was buying packs at 20 cents just to hold them. And now they're 50 cents, 45 cents, at least last I checked. So
Does anyone know offhand how many Chaos Legion packs made it to circulation? I remember we cut it off at the end and, did some burning, but the 10 million was the original hard number, I believe.
No, it was
And
12. 12 was the original
was
hard
it
one,
12?
but
that was
Chaos
15.
Legion.
15 million was the original? No.
I thought it was
Yeah,
12.
it was 15 million. So we have
Was it really?
12
10
made
million 500,000 open,
Oh
almost
yeah,
5
he's
million
right.
circulating.
And nothing burnt?
Oh, that can't be right. That
that
That's
can't be
not
right.
right.
Splinter
That's more
That's
than
Splinter
not right.
Cards is
15
wrong.
million.
You're
That is
wrong, Splinter
exactly 50.
Cards.
Yeah, it's
What's
more
up,
than 15 million
T-Hawks?
right there. Unless
No,
circulate.
that's exactly 15.
Oh, so then circulate. They didn't count what was burnt at the end.
We for
Burned is not included in here for some reason.
Did we
Yeah.
not burn? Did it all go to the Dow?
No, they definitely
No, we
they
burned
burned
a
the
shit
Dow.
That's what I
ton.
thought. I
They
thought we
burned the
did.
shit. They burned a lot of
I,
those Dow decks too.
I want to say we ended
Decks.
up right around 12 million. I think we burned about 3. I think.
And the reality
That's
is, man, they're even at max print rate. There were approximately just under 5,000 max Chaos Legion decks possible if all cards were combined. And that
mm-hmm.
comes back to the
Mm-hmm.
thing where it really doesn't take that many new players to completely fix the demand issue for
It
the cards.
it's true, but I think one of the things that we have proven here right now is that modern is the only format that actually drives true demand to cards because the price of Untamed has gone like there's no demand for Untamed. And that's the interesting part for me is like with how valuable it was when it was in peak demand, now it's not, it's for collectors, you know.
Well, that's where another thing I think definitely needs to be addressed is its constant demand for older editions. Through tournaments, through other game modes, not just land, but other game modes that actually utilize those. That's going to drive the demand for the new edition. If people are really looking at the whole overall ecosystem and they look now and say, oh, these cards, it cost me 10 grand to get a set. And in 2 years they're going to be worthless. What's the incentive really to buy? And you're not earning anywhere close to 10 grand, or even 10 grand worth of entertainment, one might say, from one of these decks. But if they look and say, wow, look at the last edition that rotated out, that's actually gone up even more because there is still all these use cases for it, then that's incentive to purchase the current set and consider the investment aspect. And that's on the team has to be creative on how to introduce more and more modes.
I
To
completely
you.
agree, man. I think I will say that I think that is a massive piece of silver lining that presents itself as a result of survival mode. Because
Yeah,
survival
that's one
mode
mode.
is
Yeah.
completely automated.
Hmm.
I think there's all of a sudden a very real argument to be made that manual players should have an additional mode available as well. And shout out to our buddy Mondroid. Rogue, I know that you guys have kind of been talking back and forth about, some of his ideas that he would like to see game modes like Gauntlet mode, for example, where it kind of uses the same mechanic of survival mode where you can only use one
Mm-hmm.
card one time, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's out of your Gauntlet race, but you're facing 10 or 15 successive, whether it's monsters or boss monsters or constructed teams, like highlighting particular rule sets and an environment. Uh, if the way we currently have it set up, ranked is pretty much everything. If you're not competing in ranked, what are you doing? Either you're botting or you're playing modern manually, or you got a scholar. Uh, but other than that, it's kind of slim pickings for how you can use these cards. So I completely agree, Jimmy. We have to see another game mode that gives full access and just for fun. I think realistically, in an ideal world, ranked should be for the most serious gameplay of Splinterlands. Um, that's where the biggest pot should be made available. It's the most competitive. if you want to play at the top, you got to compete. You got to compete on the market. You've got to have a max deck. But not being able to use all these untamed cards and in a couple of months, Chaos Legion in Modern, we need to have a space for them to continue to retain the value. And I don't think tournaments and brawls is enough. And I don't think just survival mode is enough. And I
Or
don't think
land.
land is
Yeah.
just is enough. I think we need alternative, purely fun game modes. And After Sound, uh, he released a really interesting video a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where he said, I'm done playing ranked. I'm only playing training.
Mhm.
Uh, and that
That's
shift
awesome.
is really fascinating to me. Yeah, because it all of a sudden it highlights nothing but the fun.
The fun, yeah, and that's what we've been screaming. That's why we've wanted that mode for so long.
Yes.
Just customizable challenges, that don't affect your ranked status because
Yeah.
it's fun. Because
Inconsequential
it's fun.
gameplay.
Yep,
Yes.
and let people come in. Someone comes in and wants a new player comes in, bam, you can try the game at any level you want. You want to try max, you want to try
For
bronze, you want
free.
to try silver,
For
you
free.
want to try alpha only, you want to play alpha? Boom, here's what it was like when the game first started. Expand that mode. It's one of the best things we could do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. He switched to that's true. He switched to just training mode.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's awesome.
he's
I
completely
need to watch
content
that.
just botting his account in Wild and scratching the itch of fun gameplay solely through training.
That's
And I
kind
think
of
he said he's played, I don't remember the numbers that he said, but he's played far more training battles than he ever did ranked manually. And he's playing the game more than he has in years.
that's amazing to hear. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was hoping would be the result of that mode, of the kitchen
Yeah.
table game mode for all under a different name.
Yes. Yeah.
It's still
And we got a
KTG
couple
under.
versions of that.
Yeah, we need more of that. We need
Yeah,
more
we
of
do.
that, and then have the other options for people who want to get serious and want to invest. And it's going to happen if you give people a taste of the game and show them the fun part of it. And then the good players say, "Wait, I could earn with this. I could make money. I could play try tournaments. I could earn just from playing a single match. Count me in. You're going to get a percentage to do that."
Yeah. So it survival mode, I think, is important for a couple of reasons. One is, what is the viability of this thing? Is it exploitable? Are we going to see those exploits, kind of come to fruition if everything is protected? And Matt has been adamant in saying that, if we see any exploits, it's going to be greenlit as immediate priority. Obviously a lot remains to be seen. Survival mode is still on test servers. Evidently it's meant to be released next week. And I think it'll take a little while before things shake out, and probably as long as waiting until the release of Conclave Arcana to see what the real effects of survival mode are, where folks can no longer play Chaos Legion in Modern, and survival offers another viable place to take those cards. But yeah, again, the really big silver lining there is that Modern manual players, or Wild manual players for that matter, now have a really solid footing in terms of being able to demand another manual gameplay mode. So we shall see. Jimmy, you were at the town hall today. Uh, I was able to listen to about an hour. I got to hear Adam Walls kind of make his marketing pitch to the community, and for the first time we kind of hear a real marketing plan with kind of tangible, actionable items on that list coming fast and furious down the pipeline. I think he was asked point blank, is all this stuff that you've been talking about for the last 30 minutes planned to be operational and in full view by the time Conclave Arcana launches? And the response was a resounding yes. Um, I woke up to the town hall was at midnight, 1 a.m. my time, so I was kind of listening as much as I could before we got the episode rocking and rolling. here with these guys. But I did wake up to a number of messages from folks who have not been feeling, let's say, the most bullish the last 6 or so months, saying that this town hall represented kind of a sea change in perspective for them, and that it was a really big town hall, and probably, to quote a dear friend, I won't I won't out him, but somebody who has felt particularly frustrated with the state of the game, the direction of the company, and uh, a lack of perceived movement, uh, very candidly told me this was the best town hall I have ever seen. Um, Jimmy, you were there in the flesh. Let's get your thoughts on the town hall, and what are you kind of most excited about from what you heard?
Well, answer your question with a question. Why was it the most well-received town hall in the past almost a year?
I think it was the marketing.
Yeah,
I think a
because
solid plan that was
finally we're
presented.
going to do the most important thing in the freaking universe, which is focus on getting new players. There's been a lot of talk about it. If it was the top priority of 2024, which never manifested, and I think that gave myself and a lot of other people a tremendous amount of frustration. So to actually hear from the person who's in the company who's actually saying, yes, we are in partnership and this is going to happen. That was the best news I've heard in literally years. So it was incredibly uplifting to listen to him. His strategy sounded good. His credentials sounded really good. His business ethics sounded spectacular. He's actually stepped out of so, again, I'm assuming everything he's saying is true. I will definitely give him the benefit of the doubt there. But he stepped out of six-figure contracts because they didn't like the corporate mentality and the ethics of their partners that they were working with. Um, it was just incredibly positive to listen to this and very uplifting to hear that, hey, we're going to be focusing on new players. Here's how we're going to do it. We're shooting for Web3 first, which was kind of a cool strategy because he's like, he threw out some numbers. There's not a lot of Web3 players out there, and it doesn't really take much to get to the top of Web3. And I kind of think what they mentality is there is that if you can be number one in Web3, which he's like looking at all of Web3, we can easily be number one in Web3. I also believe that. um it's like if we could be number one in Web3, then moving on to Web2 and getting those Magic the Gathering players and all those other people into the digital world is going to be a lot easier. Like he didn't actually say that last part that being, but that's what I'm assuming is kind of the strategy. He did say that we're going for Web3 first, and then after we crush Web3, move on to Web2. I'm assuming that's part of the strategy because you get the eyes on the Web3 game, and then you just pull the people into who don't even realize how that they are so well suited for a digital version of what they do. Um,
Already. Yeah.
yeah, in analog form.
I had the same reaction, and honestly, my mind jumped to this episode today, and particularly your kind of Splinterlands origin story, Rogue. Uh, you've shared it here, you shared it with the 101 guys. You were for a long time a Magic guy, and then you shifted into other trading card game guys. And correct me if I'm wrong. You went out searching. I think you have shared your exact kind of Google search phrase in Magic the Gathering Web3 version or something like that, something along
Hmm.
those lines, and landed on Splinterlands. And
Trading card game, TCG on the blockchain.
bingo, that
Boom.
should be. And Splinterlands was,
Bam.
the rest is history. Here you are.
Trademark that.
Yeah,
Trademark
let's
that.
see. Let's do that right now. TCG on the
TCGOTBC.
blockchain.
Bam.
What shows up? Let's see. Best blockchain trading card games 2024. Blockchains. Blockchain games. Doesn't actually do a direct let's see. Gods Unchained number one. Skyweaver, Parallel, Aether, Cross the Ages, Splinterlands. It's there. Boom. It's,
It's real.
it's real. And it's funny because this list really Cross the Ages is new, Aether is new, and Parallels new. But these other three, they were the same three I dove into when we started this bull run before. So it was Skyweaver, Gods Unchained, and Splinterlands. So, and I tell you what, the Splinterlands today looks a lot better than the Splinterlands I stumbled into. That's for sure.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I'm
they've been doing a
excited.
lot of work, man. They've definitely been doing a lot of good. The worker bees on the Splinterland team have been incredibly busy over the past couple of years, and it really shows.
Yep.
We're on the cusp of something big here, guys. I did, even though I didn't get to listen to all of the town hall, like I said, I got through about an hour before we were set to hop on this. I did give a solid scroll through town hall, and man, I wish the team would get back to posting all the eye candy in the bloody eye candy channel. I think that's what that eye candy channel is for. It's been pretty quiet for the last freaking year. So if anybody on that team hears that, please update the iCandy channel. But Nate dropped some pretty sexy photos of where the game is going, and some pretty cool looking new battle layouts, backgrounds. Um, yeah, let me screen share this. This one in particular, I really, really liked. That is a
Oh, yeah, that was part of the
good looking battle right there.
interactive tutorial, wasn't it?
Oh, that's
That they're
Yes.
smooth.
working on,
Yeah. And
which
it's
is
got a
great to hear.
location, which I think is very cool. That kind of makes me think lands.
Mm.
Like, if we've got brawls hosted at Rogue's Castle or
Hey,
Jimmy's Keep or, whatever. Um, yeah, it just brings the player in,
I
I
see
think at a level where
three
I think we
cards on
should.
there
Yeah, they're
that I
completely
haven't seen
wrong.
before.
I think these are the
Those are
foundation
starter. Those are
cards.
part of the starter set with the wooden border. They have wooden
Oh,
borders.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
Those are part of the starter cards.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely step in the big step in the right direction that we've all been waiting for. Another thing that came out was the guy who's doing I forget his name. The guy who's doing the marketing now. Not Blaze, the guy who
Andrew.
runs the company. Andrew, totally. When we asked specifically about interactive just tutorials and onboarding tutorials, he said he's like kind of a pro at that, and that he definitely tend to be working with the team in order to get those done, and they will definitely be in place by the time all of this launches. So that was very good news to finally hear.
Yeah,
And I
I
hope they're
will say,
flexible with Chaos, Carne Asada being launched. Hopefully they just, it doesn't have to a hard date, but just make sure the set's ready, make sure the set's done, make sure all this stuff is in place.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm hoping. Even if it
Yeah.
takes 4 months, fine. I'd
I
rather see it done right than see it freaking flubbed
Mm-hmm.
or done half-assed.
you know,
Just
I will say that Adam, or not Adam, Andrew, he didn't say he can kind of do tutorials. This guy's got a massive ego, but he's also got the CV, I think, to back it up. So I'm okay with a bit of some of my favorite my when I think of ego and delivering, my mind jumps to sports. Maybe that's the American in me, but I think of guys like Ricky Henderson back in the day and Ken Griffey. Like, these are flashy, big ego guys that,
but they deliver.
they get
That's the
it done,
thing.
and they got
Yeah,
the
there's a
resume to
difference
back it up.
between
Yeah,
ego, but and being confident in what you can do.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think a bit of cockiness, I think is good. It's personality. It's good marketing. It's yeah.
Yeah,
So hopefully we see this stuff come to fruition, man. I think
Oh yeah.
overnight, it's good to feel the community kind of collectively get a breath of fresh air and feel more positive. And
Light at the end
man,
of the tunnel, like finally,
yes,
like it's what we've been waiting for so long, and it's like, ooh, there it is. Really? There it is. And another thing that I didn't mention before was one of the things I really liked was the fact that this company is taking a significant part of its payment in locked SPS. Which is a really good sign in my eyes. They're not
Mm-hmm.
just
I
taking
agree.
cash and they can say, oh, it worked or it didn't work, whatever. A large part of their payment comes from their campaign being successful and driving the price of SPS up.
Yeah,
I'll be
that's
curious to
good.
hear, we've heard, I think Matt, I don't remember if it was on a town hall or if it was on, our final episode with Matt of last season, but pitching the value of SPS, it's such a spider web of stuff. And I feel like it's hard to elevator pitch SPS. Uh, and I think we're continuing to kind of redefine and add facets into SPS and the value of why you should hold it. I think it's really cool that I think it's the training mode or the challenge mode, for example, where you pay a nominal DEC fee unless you have X number of SPS staked into your account. I would love to see a little bit more of that kind of additional value chucked on to staking SPS long term, especially as we move towards a place where SPS staking rewards are drying up in the next 6 months, right? I think it's August that we're losing SPS staking rewards.
Jeez,
Uh,
I didn't even realize we were that close.
we're close. We're really close. That's the first well to get exhausted.
Mm.
And then I think ranked is next on the list for like 18 months from now, I think.
But like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I need to brush up on SPS distributions again because I keep going to like splinter cards and we're just still at, I don't know, 50% distribution. Like we're not, we're nowhere near the full,
Is
yeah,
that
the
right?
actual supply is 2.8 million.
50.
And yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It feels like, the Chaos
Oh,
Legion
it
thing
is.
being off makes me think that, maybe is shout out Aftersound again. And one of his biggest issues with all of the Splinterlands data is the integrity. You like on a whim, you can see numbers jump up and down and back and forth,
Yeah.
and you never know, where's the source of truth, and
So
validators should help with all of that.
Yep,
they should,
validator.
and we just had the major distribution too, which that's what I forgot about. I'm looking at this and I'm like, duh, where's the non-distri? We printed everything. That's why I totally forgot about that.
Hmm.
But so yeah, I guess when I look at it, right, for me, distribution wise, I mean, some of the DAO was part of the distribution, but staked is 31% and liquid is 3.6. Like everything else is locked up or gone. So like the reward pool's still at 25.1%. The Dow's got 32% of it, of that, which I don't think was that high before. I want to say we were somewhere around like just after 50% or something like that, 55% on the original distribution before we printed everything. So that's why I'm shocked that we're already out of. We've got a lot of DEC. I mean, we've got a lot of SPS to reallocate, I guess. Maybe we got to revisit that.
Yeah,
I think wasn't that
yeah.
all? It was all printed and locked up,
Hmm.
just for that reason. We do have to have the conversation soon about like a halving schedule or making things kind of last a little longer. A few people keep bringing that up, and some people don't want to talk about it. But
Probably
um,
not until like I don't know, right until the value starts to go the other way, right? Like talking about having while your assets doing this,
yeah,
it's just I don't know if
well,
that's
that all
not
comes to new players, though.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
Well,
mean, yeah, as soon
and
as it
offering additional value to staking SPS.
and
And
having could drive up price too. If there's
yeah,
less freaking flooding the market every single day,
Mhm.
that could drive up value. But yeah, more staking benefits would be great. I would like to see a lot more SPS benefits out there.
yeah. I don't
Just
think
more
governance
use
is
cases.
enough. I
No,
agree.
no, yeah. Use case needs to increase.
Mm.
Yeah. What do you guys think about SPS renting?
I
Renting.
mean, it kind of I don't know. There's so much in circulation. There's not enough people that are really taking advantage. Like I don't know. I can rent a million S or sorry, 100,000 SPS for I think if I did it last time it was like 1,400 or something like that DEC for 7 days. It was something silly. It was real cheap.
Yeah.
Um,
That's one of the things I almost don't like is the rental of SPS. It's like if you want to incentivize use case and more demand, players should need to be, get the SPS and put it in their account and lock it up in order to play.
Yeah, but it's also kind of part of that barrier of entry, right? Like
It
you need
is.
it
Yeah, that's
because,
true.
like if if you're like, okay, in order to be the diamond player or the champion player, right? Like you not only have to spend, 10K for Rebellion and then 10K for Carne Asada and then 10K or more for SPS too, then you're just tacking on another thing that you have to spend a bunch of money on in order to be at the max levels, right? So I've always appreciated I've always appreciated renting for entry. That's it's for trying it out. It's for seeing what it looks like. It's for putting your toe in the water, right? It's just right now it's obnoxiously cheap, so it almost seems pointless.
Well,
Yeah, no, that's a
we
valid
also
point. Valid
have,
point.
now we have kitchen table game mode. Like you can feel the game out without putting skin in the game. You can look at top battles and see what earnings are. You can
Hmm.
do the math. I think I don't think rentals should go away, but I have long been of the mindset that I want to see ownership rewarded more substantially. I think, me and your account down the road that rents a modern deck and rents 500,000 SPS, we are not the same. Uh, and we should not be rewarded equivalently in my mind. Uh, I think ownership should take absolute precedence in dictating reward, whether that's cards or SPS.
I like it for SPS. That's kind of a cool idea. I don't know if I like it for cards though. I'm still undecided on that topic. Because
Well,
one of the
maybe
things
SPS
I
would be
like about it,
enough. I don't know.
yeah, SPS, like your owned SPS versus rented SPS. I could see that being something. Part of what I really liked about this game from the beginning was the fact that you could rent cards. And again,
Hmm.
if demand is up, we saw it happen during Untamed when demand at the end when demand was raging, rent went
Hmm.
through the freaking roof,
And
because
that's where ownership is rewarded,
and
you
that's where
know.
that's where your ownership is rewarded. Exactly.
Mm.
So
And I
like
want
it
to
doesn't like for you, yeah, you're just like you're like I'm playing with everything I own. I have nothing extra, right? But it's for me that's still where, you also don't have any overhead because like as everybody else is fighting for a discount on their rentals so that they can essentially walk away with 10% of what they're earning, you're walking away with 100% of what you're earning because of what you own, you
Yeah.
know.
And I and many others were reinvesting into the game like a lot at that time. If you were earning stuff, you weren't just cashing out. You were reinvesting in like cards to rent, because it was a viable option.
Mm.
It was it was a
Well,
Talking about reinvesting, I think that's pretty interesting because I I feel like I have been like I haven't withdrawn anything from the game, right? But I am also in this weird spot where I don't actually feel like I'm super uh invested or ready for a new set either. And that kind of sucks. I know there's a lot of players that feel that way. Because like realistically, it's awesome. I have 100,000 SPS now. I just crossed the threshold, so I've got 100,000 SPS staked. That's awesome.
congratulations,
ooh, it's a
explosion.
big number.
Yeah, right? It feels good. Cross six figures on SPS staked.
Man.
Um, but realistically, that's still, pretty low in what the thresholds are to play at the level that I'm playing at right now. But then I also like at this point, I can't afford anything yet um, for Conclave Arcana. Like I can't really afford anything new without fiat. And I've been grinding at this now for 3 years. You know what I mean? So that's kind of one of the interesting parts that I know a lot of my fellow players are kind of feeling right now is they've been at it, and we have been stacking assets, but like it's not anything that allows us to keep going. It just, we're at a place where like I try to put it into perspective because I do have a lot of things that I could walk away with right now if I wanted to. And I could show that like my time here for 3 years was valuable because I have a good amount of assets, but they're spread out in such a way that I can't actually recoup anything and to keep going. I have to invest capital at this point. And I know that was one of the things that I feel like when I was sold Splinterlands in the very beginning, everybody that was compounding their Untamed into chaos, that's where I thought I was gonna be in 3 years. And I'm not there. Even though I have a lot of stuff, I would have to take a huge haircut to like shuffle Splinterlands assets into Conclave Arcana.
Yeah. Well, again, that comes down to we haven't really had new players in 3 years. I think that's the entire problem. New players drives up the demand and the value of SPS.
Yeah.
10,000 players changes everything for asset holders. 100,000 players changes everything a lot. For asset holders. And no, I hear what you're saying, though. I also was hoping to be, self-sustaining in Splinterlands at this point.
Yeah.
And it's still not there. It was at one point, 3 years ago during that bull run, it was definitely there, and now it's not. But again, new players, I believe, solves that problem. I honestly think if this game is as successful as it has the potential to be, it does constantly expand. Part of what Andrew was saying about the marketing, constantly having tournaments, constantly having these events that just bring in new people that are broadcasted. But part of what his company did was he quit like some corporate job to create one of the first YouTube gaming channels and grew that into an incredibly successful business. So he's got the background, the know-how, the skill, and the drive to, target this and take it to the next level.
Maybe Splinterlands TV will come back around and
I'm sure it will
get my job back.
Yeah, I'm sure it will when we see the growth that we can get. But I think if this game achieves the success it's capable of achieving, we could see $1 SPS. That's not unrealistic. Oof. If the flywheel kicks in and we have hundreds of thousands of players coming in, I'm not talking tomorrow, I'm talking, 5 years, 10 years down the road, maybe. But I still think it's not unrealistic to see $1 SPS, given a hugely expanding player base, the flywheel kicking where SPS is regularly burned for DEC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think if Splinterlands is still around in 5 years, there's no way it's not, right?
Yeah, pretty
like,
much. Or at least
what are we still doing? Like at that point, like we're talking 5 years. That's like maybe 2 more bull runs. Like, and if we're still there, and what does it look like if we're still around for 5 years and it's not grown? Like, how does that even? How is it still alive?
Just around everything at that point.
I think those things cannot coexist.
He would win.
That's where I'm at. You know.
I mean, it's funny that you bring up the $1. I was just gonna say, I've been stacking SPS since I got here. I think I pulled out SPS on 2 occasions. One was to buy a node, and one was I think it was to go in on the Baron Fiat promo card. Otherwise,
off the secondary or off the store?
No, we went after we did a group buy on the shop, and it paid dividends because of
I just saw them at $2.
The silly leaderboards. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's a
Great
good
card though.
difference.
Great
Ugh.
card. Very underrated. He's fantastic and
I love it, dude. I've pulled
so
the
good.
12 mana rule set. I think Magic only. I've done
Yeah.
the Lorcus Baron Fiat play.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sneaky one that I don't think folks give credit to because right away you're getting an ambush having, you're
Mm-hmm.
bumping up your HP, and then the counterplay I think or the more often play uh is probably like Thaddeus with a couple of 3 and 4 mana monsters and Fiat's just gonna clean house with that. But um anyways, yeah, so my point is, if we could see 4 or 5 or 6 cent SPS in the next few months, I think there's going to be a lot of guys like me who I would very happily part ways with 100K SPS, send it to the furnace, give me that DEC, and I'm going to spend all of that on Conclave Arcana. Uh, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And I think 4 cents, we saw 4 cents, we saw almost 5 cents, I want to say, when Rebellion came out. And now is an even more kind of momentous development cycle. We've got validators, we've got a fresh marketing squad, we've got a refurbished, enhanced UX UI. We've got, I think, Chaos Legion leaving helps modern more than it hurts modern. Maybe it hurts modern in the short term, but long
Hmm.
term, Chaos Legion is the albatross. Like it's such a pain in the ass. We've got Land 1.75 getting ready to launch. There's a
Yeah.
lot more happening now than what was ever happening when Rebellion came and we hit
Hmm.
almost 5 cents. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would be at the ready to unstake everything, burn 100 KSPS as quickly as possible, and loop that right into to Conclave Arcana.
It hit 5 cents
I'd be
from
happy
where
to
though?
kind of supplement that with
From
some
here.
fiat, but there's no chance that I'm going to be able to afford sinking, another 8, 10K into Conclave Arcana.
Hmm.
No chance.
Where did it hit 5 cents from? Like I said, it went up to 5 cents when Rebellion came out. Where was it down to? It
I
wasn't
want to
where we
say it
are
was
now.
I think it was about a penny.
Oh, really? So it went from a penny to 5 cents.
I think so.
Wow. So that means we
I
should get
could be
two and a
wrong.
half cents now, if the same ratio applies.
Well, I'm hoping it's more than that we've got if we've got the marketing going full steam ahead. Um, And I would guess there's going to be a lot of guys who are happy to buy SPS just to burn it. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
The you guys we're like a couple hours away from this proposal passing on the season rentals.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Ah, I mean, I think
I still haven't voted on it.
fundamentally I like it. I think it has the entry, the consistency. Like I think that was one of the things that I didn't like most about rentals when I was starting as a new player was like having to consistently go to the market. Like at the end of the day, like when I want to play with something, I want to play with it for a while. You know what I mean? I for sure don't want it disappearing on me without me like knowing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna build this team with this, and oh, it's gone. Crap, what happened? Oh, I didn't manage my rentals this day and I lost it. Crap. So I like it from that perspective. Um, the only thing that I think I don't like about it is just I don't know if there's as much demand for season versus tournaments. Um,
The
especially where
cost implications are a big question for me.
yeah, where like Untamed Concern, gold foils. Like I don't think people are going season rental on gold foils. I think those are specifically just for tournaments at the end of the day. So I don't know. Uh,
Okay,
Ooh,
well
that almost
let
makes
me
me
let
want
me
to
counter
say,
that with, if modern Rebellion is going to be what's primarily for rent. If you have access to seasonal rentals in modern, and gold foil is going to give you a significant advantage on grabbing a lion's share of rewards. Yeah, I think that completely changes we just don't know what things are going to look like post Chaos Legion. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like, when I was renting Untamed for brawls and for ranked, I would make my seasonal leaderboard push during the time that I had cards rented for brawls.
Yeah.
And I had that
Try to line
guaranteed
it with
2 day.
tournaments.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had that guaranteed 2 day window. Maybe I would try and rent certain key cards for 4 and 5 days and try and hold on to them a little bit longer. But more often than not, and especially as you wheel into the final like 4, 5, 6 days of the season, people are canceling rentals to hike the price for that EOS push. And that's a feel bad experience as a new player who doesn't have access to cards. So, on one side of the balance is user experience, especially new player experience. On the other side of the balance is the cost implications.
Yeah.
I would probably weigh user experience as where we should focus
Hmm.
versus the cost implications. But yeah,
No, I'm with you.
I've abstained
I'm with you.
as of now on
yeah,
that
I
vote. I
abstained
don't
as
know.
well so far. I think, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. I was just thinking now, it seems like the use case and the new player situation, all that it's kind of split between modern and wild. Like no one's going to go if you need to rent some untamed cards for a tournament or some beta cards for a tournament because there's a beta tournament out there. You're not going to rent those for a whole season, and you're going to feel another feel bad situation to be forced to rent those for a season so you could do a tournament or something. So you're not going to sit there and play manually with them. What about
Well,
season
this
rent
goes
for
back to your
modern?
earlier point, Jimmy. If we get something like a gauntlet mode where
Mhm.
I'm able to use those rented cards in additional platforms and additional
Yeah, there
game
you go.
modes,
There you go.
all of a sudden season rentals make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could incentivize people to use them if those use cases were there. And again, for modern, there it is. Like if you're forced to rent for a season, you're like, well, might as well play since I have these cards. But then, wild, it's a whole different situation.
Well,
So
there's a,
almost
I
thinking,
guess,
what about, modern seasonal rentals only, and then wild allows daily rentals.
mm,
Might be confusing, but
very,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with you there, but then I'm also from the standpoint of it's like, all right, cool. If I was gonna rent beta for tournaments, I'll get quite a few tournaments in that season. Me specifically, I actually let my bot run full power anyway. Like it does one battle every hour anyway, and I play all my modern with
Full tournaments, full tournament
uh
botting,
do what?
full tournament botting.
No, 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 just wild. But I'm
Only if
wondering
you're in
with
a certain
survival.
guild. Dun, dun,
Oh,
dun. Shots
Dun.
fired. Boo boo boo. Boo
explosion.
boo boo.
But what I can see now is if I'm forced to rent these all season, like I can guarantee on that last day, your boy's jumping into survival and he's taking all these to the grave. I'm just like, all right, well, I paid for him. Survival mode. It's time to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Well,
point. And
I
the
think
exploit,
we also had
Bulldog's
the
exploit.
say
That was
again,
a huge
Jimmy.
Bulldog's exploit is another huge thing that they're trying to
Yeah.
eliminate. He was tossing them around between accounts and
Well, so separately, we also saw the suggestion for, and I don't know what happened with the proposal, but the suggestion was floor pricing installed on rentals bumping from point one
Mm,
to one DEC.
yeah, that.
Mhm.
Oh,
It's How does that get reflected in seasonal rentals? Because
oh,
if
I
it's
hate
still
that.
a one DEC floor over the course of the season, it's not a bad deal. Because every season is
no,
in
one
is in
DEC is
excess
still
of 10 days.
insanely cheap. One DEC is still
It's so
insanely
cheap. It's
You
so
know how
cheap.
I am about cost. That's like my whole thing is that we've been putting up price barriers for years and raising the price barriers. I do not feel that one DEC minimum is a price barrier.
What, per
I
day?
completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're
No,
saying
per
season
rental. Per
rental being
rental.
14.
Yeah.
No, that's what
14 DEC, 1/14th of a dollar, or 1/140th of a dollar there.
1.4 pennies.
Yeah. That's not
No.
unrealistic. That's
Yeah,
not
Wow.
1.4
expensive.
pennies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, you with
Yeah,
your
but people
super
people
pennies. You know, they don't
people
even
don't think
make
about it
pennies
like that.
anymore. They're rare.
Really?
They
They
don't
stopped
make
making
pennies
pennies?
anymore?
Yeah, you didn't hear that? It was like, all right, so here, side note, as soon as Trump went in office, I've had to just watch everything this man has said because you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. Point, point, point here is like literally at the end of one of his EOs, he got like a quick question is like, are the pennies are the pennies gone? And he's like, yep, pennies are gone. No more pennies. We're not making them. Waste of money. I was like,
Interesting.
oh,
Mhm.
so yeah.
Just locking in inflation, saying you will never need to have a penny given to you at a store anymore because everything's going to be so expensive. The nickel, that's a new penny. Just like the 100 is the
Exactly.
20 is the new 5, 100's the new 20, nickel's the new penny.
Here, let me check this out. Yeah. What the end of the penny means for the economy. Your piggy bank and the way. Yep. Yeah, it was 4 days ago.
Official.
Trump announces he is getting rid of the penny. What are the consequences?
Yeah.
Boom. Nailed it.
Interesting.
That is a waste of
Well,
money.
yeah.
Tell them to get rid of daylight savings time. I'll agree
I'll
with
tell you
you.
what.
You're doing all this crazy shit. Do daylight savings time, bro. That'd be great. Come on, get rid of that shit. It's bullshit. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to. Kids
Oops.
listening.
And we're rated R now.
Yeah,
Great.
that's right. I just ruined the podcast. Damn it,
Jeez.
Jimmy.
No, AI is actually looking out for us, remember?
That's right. I'm AI.
It will probably dub over that, give you some family friendly word.
Bull honky. Bull squirt.
This is baloney. It's just, I would love it if the AI just like took his voice and just completely butchered it. That was like baloney.
Shoot. Yeah, well, I think I don't think back to the rental floor. I don't know if there was any well-defined parameters. So I think it's open to the team's interpretation. So whether it's a minimum one DEC per season or if it's a one DEC per day, I don't think.
Per season would be brutal. That would be terrible. I
I mean,
think.
Well,
but
I mean,
would anybody do it?
I understand the counter argument of we shouldn't be putting in price floors. Like we should let the market. Like I understand that also. But at the end of the day, I'm with you guys where, the reality is whether it's 1.4 DEC or 10 or 14 DEC,
Mhm.
it's an inconsequential difference. Like it feels like a big volume because it's been 10x, but at the end of the day, it's
1.4 pennies for a
yeah, it's
season.
nothing. 1.4 of those copper things that used to exist.
Well, they stopped being copper in 1982, by the way. Excuse me.
Those copper
Yeah,
Lincoln thingies.
last copper
Back
penny
when they
came
were
out in
worth something.
1982. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually used to hoard 1980. If I had a pre-82 penny in my change, it would go in a jar, kind of like the way you used to do with the silver dimes and quarters.
Mhm.
Franklin
We're-
dollars. The trick was you could get go get like a couple $100 worth of half dollars in rolls from the bank, and because so few people use them, you could bust them open and still find like silver half dollars in there. So we used to do that back in the day. You'd buy a couple $100, crack them all. It was a pain in the ass. It took a lot of time. It probably wasn't worth the time, but you would come out with a couple of Franklin half dollars or the half silver Kennedy dollars and stuff, or even some of the
you
silver
hippies
Kennedy.
are a resourceful bunch, Jimmy.
Roll
I
back
love
up. I'm not
that.
a hippie, Jimmy. Damn hippies. I don't wear patchouli.
Shoot.
Dirty hippies.
Dirty hippies.
Dirty hippies. Damn hippies. That's the term. Damn hippies.
Oh shoot. Well, gentlemen, we're coming up on the 2 hour mark.
Explosion.
Hell of a show. I feel really good about being back in the saddle. I'm glad that we could kickstart season 4 with the two of you guys. Two of my personal favorite people in all of Praetoria. So thank you again for hopping on and getting the inaugural episode out for 2025 and season 4. I think it's safe to say I think sentiments are arising. I think folks are excited and looking forward to the coming months again, which man, I did hear Matt say in kind of the QA section of Andrew's portion of the town hall that he wants the team to get back to product roadmaps. Um, I feel like that it all comes down to communication. I think sentiment has been waning the last 6, 9 months because there's been a lack of communication. Town halls have felt far and few between, and there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about. And I think when we start seeing product roadmaps and we get the chance to feel excited about what we know is upcoming, uh, we're going to be right back in the glory days of development, moving into production, the community feeling excited, and it feels like this town hall represents that. And shit, I'm excited. It feels good. So
Roadmaps would be great. It doesn't even have to be a timeline. He doesn't have to say this, then. It's just like, here's what we're working on, and here's what we plan to be working on next.
yeah,
Just that little bit. And that you're right. That's what's been lacking over the past year or so. I think the last thing we were told was new players 2024. That's our priority, bro. That's where we're going, bro. Yeah. Wait, 2024 came and went, and that didn't
it's
happen.
That was
February.
a fast
That was
year.
our one roadmap. That was
It
our
was a
one thing
fast
on the
year.
roadmap. So yeah, no,
Goodness.
it was a very pleasant shift today. I smiled for the first time in a town hall in a long time.
Awesome. Any parting words, Rogue?
Rebellion is the new untamed. Prepare yourselves for the mass exodus of modern. You have been warned.
Jimmy, anything to add?
An explosion, if I could. Yeah, he's right. I don't think we ever finalized and said what we think will happen when Chaos Legion Moderns rotates out.
No,
We were talking about it, but we never did predictions.
take us out with the prediction, Jimmy. What do you got?
Oh, geez, I have no idea. It remains to be seen.
Well, that was anticlimactic. Explosions.
But yeah, lots of explosions. I think there's
I
many
don't
ways it could go, but we'll see what happens.
don't know what's gonna happen. It's just gonna be glorious.
Yeah, yeah. If we get new
Rewards are
players,
going to go through the roof, right? Like that's an absolute given. If you've been stacking rebellion cards, I think
Mhm.
you're set up for to continue. I think rebellion for the first time in a long time, given the conflict's success, and what a max rebellion deck does in terms of separating you from the pack on ranked and in tournaments. We haven't seen a set have that kind of impact yet, and to have two sets consecutively that potentially could hold that sort of impact, it's really unprecedented with Splinterlands, and I think it represents a really bright future. So overnight, I'm at the risk of sounding redundant. I'm excited. I'm feeling bullish again. It's good. Good, good, good.
Good, good, good.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. As always, appreciate both your times, your insights, your perspectives, your thoughts. Always a good time hanging out with the one and only Rouge and Mr. Fat Jimmy. Wonderful hanging out.
Thanks for having me again, Jimmy.
I'm glad
Yes,
it's getting
sir.
kicked off. I'm looking forward to the episode next week.
When you guys can actually listen. Oh yeah. Awesome. All right, gentlemen. Hopefully you guys out there enjoyed the show. If you have not had a chance to listen to the town hall, go get your saddle ready, get on the bowl, It's coming. Things are shaping up and shipping out on the development side, and we're in for a fast and furious next couple of months. Tune in next week. We will be back. Yeah, season 4 is off to the races. Let's go. In the meantime, appreciate you guys tuning in. You have been listening to
The People's Guild.